Okay. So, part of what you looked at in that ed puzzle, part of what you saw yesterday in your reading guide was this conversation about haploid and diploid cells. So, what the heck are they talking about? So, if I'm looking at cells in general, there are two main categories that I can break them into. There are the diploid cells, and there are the haploid cells. So what makes them different from each other? Okay, so first of all, diploid cells are created, oh my lord, this is going to drive me crazy, the bouncy. They are created with mitosis, which we'll talk about this week. Haploid cells, on the other hand, are created through a process called meiosis. Okay, so that's one difference between the diploid and the haploid cell. Now, the diploid cells have a couple of different names. The diploid cells we sometimes also call somatic cells. Sometimes we call these body cells. Okay, haploid cells also have a couple of different names. Sometimes we will call a haploid cell a gamete. We also sometimes call these the sex cells, okay? So again, it doesn't exactly matter. You want to call it a gamete, you want to call it a haploid cell, you want to call it a sex cell. They're all kind of like in the same wheelhouse. They don't exactly have the same definition, but close enough, like good enough for government work kind of thing. Okay, so what else is going on? So I've told you some differences, but what is really the difference between a somatic cell and a gamete? What is really the difference between a body cell and a sex cell? What is really the difference between a diploid cell and a haploid cell? The big difference comes down to the number of chromosomes. So remember, your chromosomes are where all of your genetic information is stored. Remember that when you were made, so to speak, when any creature, when any organism that reproduces sexually is made, what ends up happening is that you literally get half of those chromosomes from mom, the other half comes from dad, and then mom's chromosomes and dad's chromosomes get together, and when they make the zygote, they create the offspring. So that might be you, that might be a little baby tree, it could be a kitten, a doggy, whatever, right? Okay, that is the main focus. These chromosomes are the main focus for the differences between diploid and haploid. In a diploid cell, you have a full / complete set of chromosomes. Okay, so like I said before, when mom's cells and when mom's egg and dad's sperm get together and they get fertilized and they made you, what they made was a diploid cell. So the zygote that results from the zygote that is made during sexual reproduction is referred to as a diploid cell. It is a full and complete set of chromosomes. Now remember, these chromosomes are kind of like doing laundry when you're in a diploid cell. Yes, you got half from mom. Yes, you got half from dad. And then they all get jumbled together, but just like when you wash your socks, they have to get matched up. Diploid cells have what we call homologous chromosomes, which means that all of that full set, they don't just like float around randomly. They kind of pair up. They have a partner, if you will. One came from mom, one came to dad, and they partner up. Haploid cells, on the other hand, are a half set of chromosomes. So, for example, if a organism has 10 chromosomes total, in its diploid cell, then that organism would have a haploid cell of 5. If an organism had 100 chromosomes in its diploid cell, its haploid cell, its sex cell, its gamete would have 50. If the diploid cell had 20, then the haploid cell has 10. If the diploid cell has 42, then the haploid cell would have 21. So whatever's in the diploid, literally half of it is what's going to be in that gamete, sex cell, haploid cell. Because remember, we said we get half of our chromosomes from mom. If this is the gamete, if this is the sex cell, this is going to be the half that you got from your parent. And therefore, because it's a half set, there are no homologous pairs. Spelled that wrong. All right, so a little bit of mathanese. Now, remember how I was saying, like, oh, you know, if you're a dog, you have 78, and if you're a human, you have 23, and blah, 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 blah. Like, I was yelling at all these numbers. Every single organism that reproduces sexually has, well, I shouldn't say they have their own unique, but every organism has their own number of chromosomes that is unique to them as a species. So, for example, humans have 46 chromosomes in our diploid cell, which means that we have 23 in our haploid cells. Dogs have 78 in their diploid cells, which means that they have 39 in their haploid cells. There's no way everybody is going to remember every single number of chromosomes in every single organism that exists. So instead, what we do is we use a little like mathanese, if you will. So for my math people, there are these things called variables. They're just letters. They're placeholders. You guys know that from your algebra classes. So for the haploid cell, we always say that this number of chromosomes, we have N equals the number of chromosomes. So for whatever species, like for humans, that N would be 23 for my haploid. If I was a dog, the N would be representing 39. If I was a fruit fly, I think the N represents like 4. I don't really remember off the top of my head. For diploid cells, if I want to use that variable, I'm going to say that diploids have 2N. 2N is equal to my number of chromosomes in a diploid cell. So this is the main information that hopefully you were able to glean not only from the reading guide from yesterday, but also from the video from today.